Hi, everybody. This is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and these are your sun and rising sign horoscopes for the month of July 2019. So, this is for Scorpio sun and Scorpio rising. You may notice I'm not in my office right now. I am on the road visiting my mom with my wife and my daughters, and so I'm recording in the guest room studio. So that being said, I will be doing a few more videos this week on the eclipses, so tune in for those. Meanwhile, let's see how the eclipses are affecting you, particularly if you're a Scorpio sun or Scorpio rising. The first major eclipse happens right away on July 2nd. It's landing in your ninth whole sign house, which is the place that was traditionally associated with higher truth, higher law, and the higher governing principles of whether it's civilization or the cosmos itself. The ninth house was a place that was traditionally associated with journeys to visit oracles, for example, where you would go and see an oracle, and you would approach the oracle presumably with a question, and then the oracle would give you a judgment and give you some sense of the appropriate course of action to take. So the ninth house has long been associated with enlightenment and truth, but also the higher governing laws and principles, the people who have judgment and power to administrate the law or who have knowledge or insight into truth, teachers, lawmakers, the legal system, academics and higher institutions of learning, all ninth house material. Whether you're a physicist or a mystic, I like to say, the ninth house will be appealing insofar as it is a place where one searches for the governing principles of reality. So with the new moon happening in that house, it could be a time where your faith, your spiritual journey in life, or an educational journey of some kind is taking an important turn. This is a solar eclipse happening in a tropical sign, Cancer, and the word tropical, coming from the word tropos, means to turn. It's a turning point, a very pivotal turning point. And with a new moon solar eclipse, you get the feeling of something beginning. So a turning point in your life, a turnabout. Sometimes it's kind of a 180, but it may involve something ninth house, travel abroad, higher education, the law or the legal system somehow, or going back to school, or a spiritual commitment deepening, or something like that. So that starts off the month, and you may not feel it right away. Sometimes it takes a couple of months, a couple of lunar cycles before the seed really starts sort of blossoming. Now, between July 8th and the 9th, there's another really dynamic transit happening, which is the conjunction of Mercury and Mars in your 10th house, which is your career house, right as Mercury is turning retrograde, and as both are square to Uranus in your 7th house. Now, first of all, the 10th house is the place that's typically associated with your career. In ancient astrology, the house was called praxis by the Greeks and had the meaning of being about practice or action just in everyday life. What do you do with your time? What do you do with your energy? What do you do for a living? But what do you spend most of your time doing? So there could be some kind of real shift around your career this month as well, because Mercury is turning retrograde in a conjunction with your personal ruling planet, Mars, in that career house. You want to be careful of kind of egotistical displays of power, grandiosity, theatricality, getting unnecessarily defensive or aggressive because you feel offended or slighted, or being domineering or bullying, or really trying to assert your will in a way that's just way too strong. Don't be surprised if there are also different kinds of organizational or administrative changes or technological changes in the workplace. You wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see breaking of contracts or leases or something like that. Mars likes to cut. Mercury is a contract, the cutting or severing of contracts or negotiations, potentially cutting language or cutting words. So you want to be careful with that too. The square to Uranus in the 7th house is interesting because that's the house of relationships. It's a house that features other topics as well, but one of the main ones is relationships. It could be, for example, that there's also just an aura of combativeness and sudden disruptiveness around both work and the theme of relationships. You could it could be a moment where you feel the need or urge to separate from something that you've been wed to. It doesn't have to be a literal person, something that you've been married to. I want to separate. I want more freedom. I want more independence. And that can come through really strongly with this as well. So watch for those energies around July 8th into the 9th. Then between July 10th all the way up to the 15th, you're going to see the sun in that 9th place, the 9th house, moving through oppositions to Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. And then on July 16th, you're going to see a lunar eclipse in the sign of Capricorn in your 3rd house. This, and then between the 17th and 21st, Venus goes through the oppositions to Saturn and Pluto as well. So it's a big series of oppositions between the 9th and 3rd houses, with Cancer Capricorn axis being activated, and with a big lunar eclipse in Capricorn on the 16th. So these houses, both of them, have to do with different kinds of forces, moral, spiritual forces, and laws, so to speak, that govern our life. Some are cosmic and societal, like the Constitution of the United States, or the beliefs that you have at your local Zen temple or your Christian church that you belong to. Or the 3rd house, the obligations of family, neighborhood, kith and kin, brethren, your village life, your everyday environment, and the demands and rules that kind of govern your day-to-day activities and habits and patterns. So when there are big eclipses happening in both houses at once, often what it means is that your mind and your approach to life are changing, that your paradigm is shifting dramatically, and it's affecting you both in terms of the higher governing principles that are taking you big picture. They're taking you down the road of life from the big picture standpoint. Why am I here? What's the meaning of life? What is my calling in the world? To 3rd house stuff, the everyday responsibilities or obligations that you have to deal with. And there may be some conflict between the two of them right now. I want to go do this thing, but I'm constrained by these other things, right? Back and forth. The other thing that comes to mind is the presence of family, home, parents, ancestry, and the emotional ties that you have. There may be some sense in which there are difficult crossroads that you have to face. In order to get where I want to go, I have to make some mature, heavy-duty, responsible choices, and I may not be able to please everybody, or in some ways, I may have to shut off my emotions for a second in order to make the right choice. On the other hand, the temptation to shut off your emotions and not allow a sweeter, more gentle, or compassionate big picture to inform your choices is also there. So you're going to try to balance those extremes. So that's between the 10th and the 21st, and it's a pretty big deal. And just in terms of a load of energy coming through, that one will be really pronounced. Now, you go forward to the last transit of the month that's really significant, and you're on July 31st. On this day, we see another new moon coming through, 2 in 1 month. That's a big deal. With Venus in your 10th house, your career house, and again, repeating the square to Uranus in your 7th house. So here, you're seeing the reactivation of the theme of career and relationships as two topical areas that will be really activated for the entire lunar cycle that begins at the end of July and spans all the way through August. But you're also thinking about newness in the career, and you're thinking also about relationships and the need for interesting, new, experimental, or innovative projects at work. Or also, you have to be careful with Mars and Leo still, the potential to want to break out of existing relationships in order to innovate or be free or seek greater creative options or something like that. Could be very strong, feeling that pull right now, very strong. The potential to also sabotage existing relationships because of frustration or impatience or the inability to commit to something even though you maybe should. So pay attention to all of those themes this month. And one of the things that I would add to that just at the end there is that, again, with so much energy in Leo this month, especially Mars, be very careful of the feeling of like, oh, my ego's been slighted, and so I'm going to react from that space of feeling like, well, you don't like me enough, or I'm more popular, or I should be taken more seriously than I am, or just don't let your ego throw you into defensive postures, because the potential to react from that place and make poor decisions is there this month. So that's what I've got for you, Scorpios. I hope this was interesting. Let me know how your eclipses turn out. I'd love to hear from you guys, hear your comments and stories in the feed. Have a great month of July, and we'll see you again for horoscopes in August. Take care. Bye.